Hello YouTube, you're welcome to this video. I want to answer a question from one of my subscribers, and the question says, bro, if you want to install more than 2 panels, how do you do it? Okay, the fact is that this subscriber watched the video about my setup. So before I can answer this question, I have to take you to go check out my setup. So here is my setup. I have 250 watt solar panel and a 100 watt solar panel. Initially I was thinking I had a 250 and 130, but after some careful observation, I discovered that the solar panel was actually a 100 watt solar panel and a 250 watt solar panel, and my charge controller is an MPPT of 30 amps, and I have a 200 amp hour 12 volts battery. So this is my setup, and I want to show you how I arrived at this setup. The first thing here is this: when you add the solar panels together, 250 plus 100, you're going to have 350. And for me to find the appropriate charge controller that's going to charge this battery, I had to divide by the voltage of my battery. And here, since I have just one battery, I have to divide it by 12 volts. So 350, I'm going to divide that by 12. And you can see what I have here is 29. So that is how I arrived at 29 amps charge controller. And the closest I can find is 30 amps charge controller. So that is how I got my setup. There are 3 major components to any solar system or solar setup, which is your solar panel, the charge controller, and the batteries. You're going to set up the system in such a way that you're going to balance up everything. When you fail to balance up, it's going to affect your setup. So this is how I got this my setup. Now, subscriber wants to know what happens if I decide to add another solar panel to it. So here we're going to see what's going to happen. So we start the calculation all over again. So we're going to add 250 plus 100 here, 100 here, 100 plus 100. So we're going to have 450 watts. Now 450 watts divided by 12. So you can see we have 37.5 amps, which is more than 30. So if I want to upgrade this, so if you want to add more solar panels to my system, I need to change my charge controller. I need to go for charge controller of 40 amps. So this is basically what I need to do if I want to add more solar panels to my system. I discovered that most people still find it difficult to understand these terms. So in the near future, I'm going to be releasing more videos which is going to show us how to build a solar system from a basic one to a more complex system. What if I still want to change this 100 watts to a much bigger solar panel, such as 250 watts? Let's see how it's going to look like. So I'm going to do the calculation, because now I have two 250 watt solar panel and a 100 watt solar panel. So I'm going to add 250, 250 and 100, and that is 600 watts. So when I divide the 600 by the voltage of my battery, it's going to be 50 amps. So in that case, 30 amps will no longer work. Now I will change my charge controller to a 50 amps MPPT. There is something you have to know about charge controller technology. We have pulse width modulation, which is PWM, and we have the MPPT. I'm having mismatched solar panels here of different voltage and current, so I'm going to use an MPPT charge controller. If I were to have solar panels of same volts as my battery, then I can use PWM. Example, if I have a 100 watt solar panel, like three of them like this, and of course 100 watt solar panel should be 18 volts, which is closer to the battery voltage. So in that scenario, I can use a PWM. But in a situation like this, whereby I have different voltage of my solar panels, I will have to use an MPP charge controller, because that is what is going to manage the power and output the maximum. In my upcoming videos, I'll be able to explain in details how MPPT and PWM affect the output of our solar system. Another reason why the 30 amps charge controller cannot work with this new setup is that my 30 amps charge controller is designed to take 390 watts maximum PV input, and we have 600 together from the 3 solar panels. So that is another reason why my previous charge controller cannot work for this kind of setup. What about a scenario whereby I have 250 watts times 3? So let's see how the system is going to look like. So what I have is a 250 into 3 places, and that gives me 750 watts. So when I divide that by 12, I'm going to have 62.5 amps. So what this means is that I can go for any charge controller within this range. Now the best thing is, when you are sourcing for the charge controller, you have to check 2 important things: a charge controller that can accommodate 750 watts maximum PV input and 65 amps rating or something close to this. Those are the things to watch out while sourcing for your charge controller. Imagine this scenario: if I can get 750 watts from my solar panel in 1 hour, so what amount of energy should I get in 5 hours? So let's check that. So 750 multiplied by 5. So I'm having 3750 watts from my solar panel in 5 hours. So where am I going to store all this power? Let's check our storage capacity of this battery. So to do that, I'm going to multiply the 200 by the volts, which is 12, because watt is equals to voltage times amps. So to find the capacity of this battery, we're going to multiply the voltage by 200 by 200. So when we do that, we're going to have 2400. So look at this scenario. We're able to produce 3750 watts a day, and we're able to store 2400 into our battery. So what it means is that when we produce this in a day, we can only store this, and the rest 1350 watts is wasted. So based on this, we're going to increase our storage. So right now we have 2 batteries. Let's see what we can do with these 2 batteries. If we can store 2400 on one battery and another 2400 on another battery, so by the end of the day we should be able to store 4800. So what I'm trying to say is, if you want to increase your solar panel, also think about how you're going to increase your storage so that you can store more power being produced by your solar panels. And you can see that even though we have 2 batteries here, they are still connected in parallel, and that means we still have a 12 volts system. But there's another thing we can do. And that is upgrading our solar system to a 24 volt battery bank. And this is what it's going to look like when we do that. Let me get rid of all this. This is what we have. Let's see the outcome when we do that. So we have 750 already coming in from our solar panels. Then we're going to divide that by the voltage of our battery. We now have 2 batteries connected in series. So what that means is that we're going to add, when we connect in series, we add the voltage. We're going to have 24 volts system. So we divide 750 divided by 24. You can see we have 31 amps. So it means we can as well make use of a 30 amps charge controller. So because we are now on a 24 volts battery system, watch out for the maximum PV input of this charge controller you want to use, because in this case, as the voltage of the battery increases, then there is more room for the maximum PV input. In this case, you can find some charge controllers with about 800 watts maximum PV input. That is 800 watts coming from your solar panel. Now there is a last case we need to consider here, and that is 1000 watts. So when you have 250 into 4 places, that is 1000 watts. So we divide this by our battery, which is 24 volts. We're going to have 41 amps. So when you're sourcing for a charge controller, also check for the maximum PV input of that charge controller, and look for a charge controller with 40 amps or 45 amps, depends on your need. If you want to add more solar panels in the future, you can go for a higher charge controller such as 45 or 50. So I believe I've been able to do justice to the question asked by my friend. So what we're going to take away from this is that before you can set up any solar system, you have to check and know what you want to use the solar system for before you go ahead to build it. Because when you connect components together without checking, you might end up destroying the component. So thank you for joining me. I will see you